Pothos and philodendrons are grown in most homes in indoor garden spaces. Though they have quite a few similarities, they also have some differences. In today's video, let's take a look at the similarities and differences of pothos and philodendrons. Hi and welcome to Fresh from My Garden. In today's video, we are talking about the similarities and differences between the pothos and the philodendron plants. I will also share some of the collections of pothos and philodendron plants from our garden. This is the marble queen pothos, which has green and white variegated leaves. The leaves are mostly white with some green variegation on them. This is the Enjoy Pothos, which has a more defined pattern of white and green. On these leaves you can see that the white is towards the edges and the green is mostly towards the center of the leaf. We have most of our pothos in hanging containers and they do well in low light to bright light conditions. The variegation on the plant depends on the amount of light that it receives. Next up is the commonly seen plant in most homes, the golden pothos, which has yellow variegation in between these green leaves. The plant gets its variegation based on the amount of light it receives, but it cannot tolerate bright, direct sunlight, or the leaves will get burnt. These plants like the soil to dry out a little in between waterings, so make sure not to overwater these plants as they can start to rot. Another variety of pothos that we have indoors is the neon pothos, which has neon colored light green leaves. This container in which we have the neon pothos planted also contains a cutting of the philodendron plant. Here you can see the differences between the leaves of the pothos and the philodendron plants. The philodendron plants have a more heart-shaped leaf. It is a more defined heart-shaped leaf, and also the veins on the leaf are more defined and clearer. It's really easy to get confused between these two plants because they look so much alike. But looking at the difference in the formation of the leaves between a pothos and a philodendron is one of the ways to differentiate between the two plants. This is another container in which we have the neon pothos planted, and on this you can see a little variegation of a little bit of yellow on the leaves. Placing your pothos plants in a spot with more bright light will promote more variegation on the leaves of the plant. When kept in low light conditions, the plant will have little or no variegation on its leaves. We have different varieties of pothos and philodendrons in hanging pots and in containers in our indoor and outdoor garden. This is another golden pothos that we have indoors in a hanging pot. There are also a couple of other ways how we can differentiate between a pothos and a philodendron plant. One such way to differentiate between these two plants is to see the root formation of the plant. When you observe these two plants, you can see how there is a difference in the formation of the roots for these plants. On this plant, I'm going to show you how the root formation of the aerial root is. These are the aerial roots of a money plant or the pothos plant. The aerial roots are from where the cuttings are taken to propagate this plant for your garden. Here you can see the aerial root of the pothos plant. This is from where the new leaf growth begins. Every root node has a single root emerging from it. But when it comes to a philodendron, the new formation of leaves is covered by a sheath. The pink part of the plant that you see here is the sheath that is covering the new leaf formation and also at the aerial roots. This sheath is a protective layer for the new formation of leaves and roots, and it is not found in the pothos plant. It is only seen in a philodendron. Another difference to spot is that philodendrons have several roots per root node, whereas in the previous clipping you would have noticed that there is only one root per node for the pothos plant. While the pothos is mostly a trailing plant, philodendron comes in two varieties where there are plants that grow in an upright tree kind position, and there are also trailing plants in philodendrons. We have both the upright and the trailing variety of philodendrons in our garden. Though the philodendron and pothos plants can tolerate low light conditions, philodendron leaves will not grow as big and beautiful as you see here if it does not receive enough light. Both of these plants that are placed indoors are placed in a bright and well lit room that receives good sunlight from south facing windows. This is another variety of philodendron that we have with yellowish green or neon colored leaves that grows upright and doesn't grow in the trailing position. If you look closely, you can see the difference between this neon colored philodendron and the neon colored pothos that I showed you earlier. Now sharing a trailing variety of philodendron where the leaves are purplish brown on the back side and dark green with a slight tinge of brown and purple on the front of the leaf. These are in hanging pots and are hung in a spot where it receives bright indirect sunlight throughout the day. When you look carefully, you can see a clear difference between the pothos leaf and the philodendron leaf. The shape of a philodendron is more heart-like and the texture of the leaf is also different, along with the sheath that covers the newly forming and emerging leaves of this plant. This is another variegated version of the philodendron plant. It's a trailing variety with neon yellowish patterns in the middle of the dark green leaf, along with the sheath that you can see here. I'm trying to share and show the sheath formation at the new emerging leaves for all the philodendron plants so that you can clearly see the difference between the pothos and the philodendrons. In this variety, you can see a yellow line going down the middle of the dark green leaf in the initial stages, and as the leaf grows, it spreads across, creating a beautiful pattern of yellow and green variegation on this variety of philodendron. This is the variety of trailing philodendron that was planted along with the neon pothos in the container indoors. The newly formed leaf has a orangish shade and turns to a neon or a yellowish green shade as the leaves grow bigger. These plants have also been planted in hanging pots and placed in a spot where it gets enough sunlight throughout the day. Here you can see how the initial shades of orange turn to a greenish or yellowish green neon color. So these are some of the collections of philodendrons and pothos plants from our home and garden. And though these two plants have a lot of similarities like light requirements, soil and watering requirements, there are a few differences since these two plants come from different plant families. By looking at the leaf formation and the aerial root formation, you can easily tell the differences between these two varieties of plants. We hope you liked the information that we shared about these two beautiful plants in today's video. If you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, please do consider subscribing for more videos on plants and gardening. Thanks for watching Fresh from my garden.